All right, still the ultimate morning show here on Raypower 100.5 FM this morning. Good morning, in case you're just tuning in. My name is Dima, and welcome back indeed from the network studio this morning. And so, as we have already told you this morning, it is time for us to review the papers and get to see the stories that are making headline. Also, because I am not alone in the studio. Chooks is very much here with me in the studio. Good morning, Chooks.
Yeah, good morning, Dima. Good morning, Nigerians. Great to be here. Monday morning. Super excited for what the new week has to offer.
Exactly, because this is yet another week for you to go out there and be the achiever that you're meant to be. Now, let's start it off with the newspaper review this morning. And I'll be starting off with the Al Jazeera Nigeria, which the big story says on the International Women's Day celebration. It says, again, women's plight takes center stage. Women's rights regression worldwide. That is data according to the United Nations says there is need to close the justice gap for women and girls. Nigeria seeks renewed commitment, and also CCD calls for protection, equal access to justice. The story is on page 9 of Al Jazeera Nigeria this morning. Meanwhile, federal government demands immediate release of 42 Nigerians from detention in Mozambique. Now, this particular one opens on the front page. Here continues on page 9. Moving on now to other story. China calls for end to war in Iran. That is on page 9 as well. Nigeria records maternal health gains in 2025, according to report that you can find on page 17. Moving on. Share not export ban extension raises FX concerns. This one is on page 16. And NDLEA arrests ex-Lagos councillor over alleged drug possession. This story is on page 8. And on page 21, ADC reserves 40% party positions for women. That one you would say good. And in the spirit of the celebration, you would say. Now, Akwa Ibom women endorsed Tinubu for re-election. Page 20, read. IGP appoints Placid as new police spokesman, page 5. And lastly, from Al Jazeera Nigeria this morning, APC victory in Ekiti and Oshun will boast 2027 chances coming from the party chieftain. And this one you can read on page 20. That is from Al Jazeera this morning.
All right, now to this Nigeria, we have that windfall. Plenty wind for states, little sunshine for citizens. Lack of visible projects angers Nigerians across many states. 903 billion naira inflows swallowed by bogus spending. CSOs ask citizens to demand accountability. All of that on page 2. NMDPRA, market forces responsible for rising fuel prices, page 14. FCT Minister confirms appointment of 1,659 workers employed in 2016-2019. That's on page 7. Teenage pregnancy highest in northern Nigeria. That's a report on page 9. Security rescued 19 kidnapped victims in Abuja community, kill bandit, page 7. And that's it for this Nigeria.
All right, before we move on to the leadership paper this morning, just to let you know that we are live on YouTube and it is Raypower Abuja, in case you just want to watch and catch up with your presenters live. Now, moving on to the leadership newspaper, the big story here says Assembly speakers back creation of state police. The story is on page 4. KB government warns clerics against inciting comments. That is on page 26. And operators, retailers project 1,500 naira petrol price as crude nears $100 on Hormuz closure. Opens on the front page here, continues on page 7. Now, Wike confirms appointment of 1,659 FCTA workers employed in 2016 and 2019. That one is on page 16. Bandits kill one, kidnap five in Sokoto. Unfortunate news there. That one you can read on page 26. DCP Anthony Placid replaces Hundein as force public relations officer, page 14. Read. Now a bit of a foreign news here. Iran names Ali Khamenei's second son, Mojtaba, new supreme leader. Read that on page 27. PDP calls for calm as appeal court rules on leadership crisis today. Page 30, read. Above the nameplate of the leadership newspaper, Tinubu's resolution of OPL 245 dispute will strengthen economy, coming from Fagbemi there. The story is on page 4. And lastly, Kano government reacts as Kwankwasiya defends deputy governor over 1.1 billion naira allegation. That one is on page 6.
All right, now moving to the front page of the Observer's Times, we have Army denies 40 soldiers killed, reports brand story fake news. We have the Chief of Army Staff, General Waidi Shuaibu, storms Maiduguri, orders immediate reinforcements to Borno Theatre. President Tinubu approves pay rise for military personnel amid renewed offensive. Public urged to rely on official channels as probe into false reports continues. That's all covered on page 1 of Observer's Times. We also have Discos generated 207 billion naira from customers in December 2025. That's from NEC on page 6. Wike approves appointment of 1,659 FCTA workers employed in 2016-2019, page 4. Troops foil cattle rustling, kill terrorists in Benue, page 7. Nigeria trained 78,146 health workers in 2 years. That's a report on page 3. And no election is perfect anywhere, says Oyo Rec. Starts on the front page, continues on page 2. And that's it for the Observer's Times.
No election is perfect anywhere. All right, let's move on to the New Telegraph this morning. The big story is on the Middle East crisis. It says fuel will hit 1,500 naira per liter in Nigeria if conflict persists, according to Petran. Now, writers to the story says Kuwait airport, Bahrain desalination until shock as Iran continues Gulf attack. Now, Pope prays rods of bombs in Middle East seizes, calls for dialogue. An explosion hits U.S. Embassy in Oslo. And the stories you can read on pages 2, 3, and 4 of the New Telegraph newspaper. Quite a bit of a long read there. Meanwhile, NLC alleges TCN officials plotting to divert 20 billion naira, asks power minister to halt contracts, demand probe into alleged inflated projects and procurement fraud, suspicious land sale as well. The story is on page 4. Meanwhile, appeal court judgment will be defining moment for Nigeria's democracy. PDP governor speaking there on page 2. Now, a little bit of a study here says cannabis compound shows promise as first drug for fatty liver disease, according to study. Read that on page 30 of the New Telegraph this morning. The dilemma of deputy governors is another headline here. How governors we Hold on. How governors weaponize impeachment, force resignation to tame deputies. Okay, the story is on pages 9, 10, and 11. How governors weaponize impeachment, forces resignation to tame deputies. Okay, kidnappers strike Abuja suburbs. Residents share terrifying ordeals. Auchi residents embark on 7-day protest against abduction. Pages 7 and 29 read there. Some more stories from the New Telegraph. IGP replaces Hundeyin with Placid as force spokesman, page 4. Federal government protests as 42 Nigerians beaten, arrested in Mozambique, that is on page 2. I'll challenge 2026 Electoral Act in court, coming from the former Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, also as he donates 60 million naira to 2 universities. Pages 3 and 5 read there. Um, in celebration of the International Women's Day, federal government targets 15 million households in social protection expansion, coming from Wale Edun, as Akpabio and the First Lady Oluremi Tinubu, among others, celebrate Nigerian women. Pages 3, 7, and 8 read there. Now, above the nameplate of the New Telegraph, Chinese vehicles gain ground in Nigeria as value of parts imports hit 1.6 trillion naira. Page 17 read. Meanwhile, on CIT, financial institutions payments rise by 135.5% to 1.34 trillion naira. The put on the front page here continues on page 3. And that's it from the New Telegraph.
All right, now moving to the front page of the Daily Sun. Convention, APC governors at war over NWC positions. That's on page 6. 2027, participate actively in politics. PFN urges Christians, page 27. NLC alleges 20 billion naira looting plot in TCN. That's on page 25. Editors inaugurate committee on research, training, publications, page 27. Recapitalization race triggers mergers talks among top banks, page 2. Port theft resurges as wharf rats loot imported vehicles. Starts on the front page, continues on page 25. Lastly, fear grips PDP members over leadership as appeal court rules today, page 6. That's it for the front pages. We're going to brief break and return with business. So stay with us.
Yep. Sadu?
Welcome back. Taking a look at the business diary. We have gas, petrol continue price surge in Nigeria. That's on page 2 after starting off on the front page. We also have NDIC now oversees assets of 560 defunct MFBs, 32 banks, page 8. 40,000 fresh workers join new pension scheme in January 2026, page 10. We also have bearish trading ends as bullish week ends investors 1 trillion naira, page 9. Resolution of OPL 245 dispute repositions Nigeria's economy, says AGF Tinubu, page 2. And lastly, Nigeria Customs, PBEC synergized to revolutionize port digitalization. And that's it for the business diary.
And now for the business NG, Nigeria's 2.5 trillion naira mall economy feels pinch as ShopRite completely exits. That is on page 2. Meanwhile, Nigerian groans as petrol hits 1,040 naira in Lagos, 1,080 naira in Abuja. Ipman seeks federal government intervention as PMS pump price hits high. The position here on the front page here continues on page 2. And Nigeria's economy continued to grow as CBN PMI reaches 56.4 in February. Meanwhile, 20 Nigerian states keep citizens in dark on local budgets, according to Budget. That is a revelation from Budget. Now, Daniel Boala faces backlash after tumultuous Al Jazeera interview with Mehdi Hassan. Page 2, read there. Naira weakens slightly as BDC rate drops to 1,415 naira per dollar. That is on page 2. And lastly, Dangote Cement faces challenges but still doubles profits to 1 trillion naira on page 2. That's it from the Business NG, and that's it for the papers we're checking out today. We've looked at the New Telegraph, the Leadership newspaper, Al Jazeera Nigeria, and the Business NG from here.
Looked at this Nigeria, the Observer Times, the Daily Sun, and Business Diary. And on the front pages this morning, well, starting off, with the army story.
Hmm.
Army denying 40 soldiers killed. That's a report. Brands the story as fake. Well, um, it's always, when stories like this hit the airs, sometimes we airwaves, we always hear, oh, it's fake, it's not. So, and the army has spoken,
Hmm.
on this, and well, we cannot go against this unless there's, verifiable facts,
Hmm.
against the army saying that the story is fake. And some people still go ahead to try and prove that there was cover up sometimes when we have these kind of security
Hmm.
issues, but we'll see how this story will progress. But the army coming out to deny that the 40 of the personnel were killed. But another key thing right now that has been happening recently in security is the um improvement of living wages and all for security personnel, from the
Yeah.
police. The new IGP has been singing and harping that, which I absolutely do
Hmm.
understand. And now for the army, with President Tinubu, approving pay rise for military personnel amid renewed offensive, it's something that we've talked about, before. I think we talked about it. Like, do not expect, somebody go lay down his life, even though they do it. The Nigerian army, kudos to them. They're not, earning huge sums of money compared to other, armies across, the world, but they still do it. They still go there. They still protect us. They still lay down their lives. But what's that? What's that remuneration for them? What's there for their families as well? For those who have passed on. How do you take care of them? How do they take care of their families effectively? So that's one thing that has been harped on. Yes, not yeah. Yesterday, yes, I saw a video of some certain individuals, wielding gun. Or they're not even going to end, very soon. If you keep giving them monies, and they are that confident, go on social media, TikTok, all these, post videos of them with all of these amounts of money, and then you now think of what your security personnel, that's representing the country earns compared to what those guys, are getting. It's a very it's something that is very pitiable, but it's
Mm.
good that the president is revising all of this, and it has to be something substantial, something good enough for them, especially when you hear that, oh, they are giving, is it 1,000 something for a day, for their meal and all of that. All of that really needs to change. We need to start taking care of our security operatives.
Yeah, really, it's a little bit long overdue for maintenance support, giving that support to security personnel, upping the salary, upping the pay. If you remember the last Armed Forces Day Remembrance and Celebration, you would recall how the widows of these fallen heroes will cry. We're not really taken care of, payments and all of that still lacking, and it's kind of sad when you hear that someone has dedicated their life and their career to protecting their nation only to almost be marginalized. So, yes, it is something that is the right step in the right direction, and it's a call that has been there for a very long time. So, seeing it happening is a huge relief. And I'm talking about the army denying that 40 persons were killed. I can understand to an extent that this is always a proactive step into dousing tensions, but please let it be that it is a fact
Yeah.
that you are speaking when you're countering some of these allegations made out there. Let it be that it stands as a fact and not that tomorrow different thing. It begins to erode trust that we or ordinarily citizens would have on the statement that comes from you. Yeah, try to take that action to make sure nobody is agitated, things are well properly done, nobody feels like, okay, this is getting too far. But when you are trying to do that in a way that you instill confidence and continue to strengthen the trust that you have with the people instead of saying it is not true. And after a while, you come out and say it is true. It kind of creates a little bit of yeah, so that one, quite good to take a proactive step to ensure that you create some sort of peace in the
Yeah.
minds of the people.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, to Nigerian politicians, I just have to say that it's high time we have accountability.
Mm,
It's high time that you actually do things for the Nigerian populace and not just for yourselves,
hmm
your families, your generation unborn. I mean, we've seen politicians pay school fees of kids they have never given birth to,
hmm
which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this story from this Nigeria, VAT windfall, plenty wind for states, little sunshine for citizens. And this it's troubling. I mean, politicians are harping the praises of President Bola Tinubu, which I understand, which is good.
hmm
They receive much more money than they have in the past. Kudos, to the presidency for doing that. The federal allocations, very, very, very awesome. But how does that now translate to your citizens? How does that translate to your citizens? I mean, water in your states. Do you provide pipe-borne water, roads for your citizenry, jobs for them? So these are big questions that actually needs to be answered. And there's one where there's even all of us are even suffering from, which is power supply. It is
mm.
very poor right now. People are going 5 days. People have to sleep in their cars to be able to sleep at night because we know the kind of heat we are currently experiencing. So for those who have cars, they have to go to their car, put on their cars
And that is
in the night.
still going.
Yes,
And to
and those
tell
who
you
don't
that the
have
price of the
cars,
fuel is even
yes,
climbing
and those
above
who don't have
1,000
cars,
naira.
if you are lucky enough to have tiles in your house, you sleep on the tiles because the tile is cooler than your mattress.
Yes,
So we are. I mean, how many megawatts? It's really sad that we have not found a solution to this power supply
true,
issue in 2026,
true,
and it's
true.
sad that we've not found a solution to the poor education we're running, the poor healthcare system,
Mm.
terrible roads. I mean, we keep almost every ministry you can think of is doing one road project, one lighting the streets project, which is
It's
sometimes
as
it's
if
not
it's
even their
uniform
area.
project, but to some extent, it's like those projects are not really answering to the immediate need of the various
because
communities
they are
and the
not
state.
supposed to be their area of concentration.
Hmm.
Imagine an organization, probably for example, now that is focused and supposed to be on probably agriculture or whatever, is
Now we are
concerned
looking
with
at
these street lights. When you see budgets, you just begin to wonder what's happening, what's going on. So these are the questions. All the monies you're receiving, what are you using them to do? Because if
it's only fair if you understand the plight of the community. You talking about the politicians now. I just want to move, not just the politicians, but the leaders, like our representatives in the National Assembly, to understand the plight of the people in the various constituencies that they're representing. In order to, when you want to do your community project, it should answer the questions those areas are talking about. If it is about road, nobody is saying road construction is poor. I mean, we really need good roads in Nigeria.
we keep
We
budgeting
do need
billions
it.
and billions
Yeah,
every
but
year
if we
for roads.
need those, we have to be sure that they are the ones that are answering those questions. Or while you are doing that, also ensure that you are answering the other questions that the immediate need, the pressing needs of the various communities. That is very
Yeah,
important.
and in 10 seconds, to the Nigerian citizen,
Mm.
things are not going to change if you're not holding your leaders accountable. Those people you voted into office, your local governments, individuals, chairman, councillors, the state governors, then the presidency, and all of that. It's a hierarchy. So those nearest to you, if you're not holding them accountable, all those simple things, coming to take your trash, your water, your life, all those kind of. If you're not holding everybody accountable, then nothing is going to
Chooks, I
change.
just want to say, when we say that we have voter apathy as a nation in this country, to a great extent, I don't know if it is a word, but I could say that we also have governance apathy.
Yeah,
As
people
in,
will just
I
go
mean,
there and
people
sit
really
and
don't
lounge,
care what's
as we say.
happening. Like the citizens are. This is democracy, and it starts from the grassroots. We're supposed to know what's going on. We're supposed to ask questions. Some of us may not even know who are representing us in the National Assembly. Whoever it is, we don't know whether it is the red chamber or the green house. We don't know who is doing that because we almost feel like, you see, this our usual. I beg, they go
The
do
focus is
wetin they
just on the
wan do.
presidency, to be honest, and
Exactly.
probably
So
states.
something that happens in your community that you're supposed to come, maybe even your local government chairman or leader, you start saying the president is not doing right, or you start saying when you're supposed to ask from the grassroots, relate with them from the grassroots, it becomes a problem. So I think that in as much as we are trying to point out maybe where the government really needs to focus on more in terms of getting and answering the questions and the need of the country and the nation, we as citizens also, we have a lot to do
Yeah, we
in terms of
absolutely do.
being involved, actively
Yeah,
participating
yeah,
in what's happening in governance in Nigeria.
yeah,
You don't ask questions, you make do with what you see.
yeah, absolutely. And
Mm,
before we go from my end, kudos to security operatives for
mm.
rescuing 19 kidnap victims in Abuja community here.
Yeah,
So it
true.
just shows you the kind of security issues. It's not just in one part of the country. Because we feel, oh, we're in the FCT, or I'm in one big, city. It's not good. We've seen it happen in Abuja. People get, kidnapped, which is another story on the front page of this Nigeria. So we
Yeah,
really need to sort out security, not just in the FCT, because it's the capital,
yeah.
but across
Cuts
the
across.
country.
Yeah, but this is all we're wrapping up the conversation because we need to take you to the network studio for the news on the hour. And do not forget that political platform will be coming your way at 9:15. Definitely be going live on YouTube at Raypower Abuja. My name is Dima.
And I'm Chooks. Good morning.
Good morning to you.